The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on January 26, 2022. So a little over a year into Biden's presidency, and he had a speech that he gave back on the 20th that was supposed to kind of encapsulate where things were at the end of a year. And boy, did that really let us know who our leader was at the end of a year. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So let's get into that speech.
Jason, it was a press conference, not really a speech.
Oh, okay, yes. It's a press conference where he, I guess, rambled for a couple of hours. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so that's... just opened one can of worms after another, and so we'll spend most of the show focused on that. So the first issue that he brought up, and this is like election security, election confidence. That's literally what the Democrats have been screaming about for over a year, prosecuting people, throwing them in jail, claiming Trump was shaking people's faith in free and fair elections. And so Biden has recently been trying to get through a couple of bills, voting rights bills that he claims will help to, I guess, allow people more freedom to vote than they currently have. At least that's his perspective on them. And he wasn't able to get them through. Manchin and Sinema did not go along with him on these bills, so he could not get them through the Congress. And so during his speech, and maybe I could get the story up here on the page. So during his speech, he had questioned then the legitimacy of these elections going forward. And what he said is, I'm not going to say it's going to be legit, Biden said, when asked about, will we be able to have free and fair elections going forward? And he said, the increase and the prospect of being legitimate is in direct proportion to us not being able to get these reforms passed, talking about his bill. So literally, he's saying, if he can't write the rules on elections, then I guess we just can't trust the results of any elections. So, I mean, geez, literally, they've been trying to investigate Trump, throw him in jail, and everything else for apparently, shaking people's faith in fair elections. And here Biden is literally trying to say that elections going forward won't be able to be trusted. Anyways, you guys want to jump in on this now?
Yeah, I think by process of elimination, that says that the election that elected him is not to be trusted either.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
And the look on his face right there, to answer the question, dangerous or just stupid, I think just stupid is answered by the look on his face.
or maybe just senile, and I don't even know where he's at. But this is the problem with the whole democratic idea of things, So when it was Trump, he's undermining democracy by questioning the outcomes of elections. He's trying to incite insurrection, and on they went, and people are being prosecuted because of the trespass onto Capitol Hill, and they call that an insurrection, and all of these things, all because Trump was trying to undermine democracy because he was questioning the 2020 election. But now we have Biden. We don't even have an election in place yet, all right? He's talking about elections going forward. All of a sudden now, these bills, these things that they are trying to pass, which some of it are unconstitutional and probably illegal, and they're trying to say now, these elections they may not be legitimate because we do not have the correct rules in place. They're talking about voter rights. Where in America people are not allowed to vote? Where? Where is that happening? That is say that somebody went up to the polls and said, no, you can't vote because you're too old, you're too black, you're too white, you're too Hispanic, or whatever. Where is that happening in America? Part of their bills also, they don't want voter ID. Okay? They don't want voter ID. You know why? Because voter ID somehow is racist. Imagine that. These people are sick. Okay? They are sick. And we have a sick president, and he is mentally ill to me as far as I'm concerned. He's definitely on cognitive decline. God help us over the next 3 years.
Well, you know what I can't help but notice, Leon, with all this voter ID stuff and the idea that Democrats appear to be so racist, they think that black people apparently run around without IDs.
Yeah, really.
Which is just crazy. I mean, when I put my kid in Little League, I literally have to provide a picture of the birth certificate. I have to show documents to show that he lives in the district just to play Little League baseball. I mean, so they want to verify his age because, I mean, the main thing they're concerned about is that people will cheat in baseball. I mean, imagine that. The idea that people would cheat, right? And we're talking about elections here too, right? But I mean, with Little League baseball, they're concerned that somebody might try to get their kid in as a younger, into a younger age group, so he can just dominate the competition. But the idea that they're going to literally ask for all those documents, or you simply can't play baseball, okay? And I mean, and we see this constantly. I mean, you have a bank; they're not just gonna hand you over money because you waltz in and say, "Hey, I'm Bill Gates. Can you
give me $1 million?"
Yeah, just give me $1 million. Don't worry, I'm good for it, right? I mean, they're gonna want to see some ID, at some point. So I just, some of this stuff is just beyond lunacy as far as, saying that you've taken away somebody's right to vote simply because you literally just want to ensure that there's a little bit of security on the election.
Or integrity of the elections. But when you think about the many places or times that we have to use ID to identify ourselves. I mean, I go to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription. They don't ask me to show ID, but at least make me verify something that is connected to me, whether a telephone number or some kind of ID to make sure that I am who I say I am in picking up the medication. I mean, you go to the bank, as you mentioned, Jason, you go to get blood, you go to do, what are they trying, you go on a plane, what are they trying to say? Black people don't do this? We don't do none of this? I mean, this is racist garbage when you think about it. This is Jim Crow 2.0. Biden like to speak about Jim Crow 2.0. This is Jim Crow 2.0.
Yeah. But apparently it's not Jim Eagle, as Biden would call it. Well, it's funny that Biden was not the only guy who was sort of tongue-tied with all this. Maybe I could get the next one up there, too. So Kamala was asked the very next day. She was in an interview, and as usual, Kamala, as her mentor, Joe Biden, seems to come out tongue-tied. It's funny. I don't recall Kamala being as tongue-tied as she's been since she became vice president. Maybe she's just like being mentored too much by Joe Biden. She seems to be worse at this since she became vice president than she was when she was a senator. But she was being interviewed about the remarks that Biden made and asked, hey, she was asked on the let's see, what was it? The Today Show.
Today Show. Yeah.
She was asked, and she was said, hey, look, he said that this is not going to be free and fair elections going forward. And what did Kamala do? She came out and she just filibustered for a solid minute or two, which is kind of ironic as well because the Democrats are trying to end the filibuster right now. And that's all Kamala did was, in fact, she came on with some response. Gosh, what was it? She said, the president has been consistent on this issue. And the issue is that there are two bills, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act for Freedom to Vote Act, and that have been the solution that has been offered to address the fact that around this country, states have put in place laws that are purposely making it more difficult for the American people to vote. And so she kind of went on and on about this, and the news correspondent here, she kept saying to her, well, yeah, but hold on a second. Those laws that you were trying to get passed, they didn't pass. So since they didn't pass, are you trying to say that, that these are going to be therefore unfair elections going forward? And she couldn't really pin her down. I mean, it was remarkable to see her faith in the filibuster here. She's trying to kill it, and her party's trying to kill it anyway. So you guys have any thoughts on Kamala and following this up?
I think she was practicing a filibuster.
Yes. Are you done, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. The reporter you're talking about, Jason, was Savannah Guthrie on NBC News. Savannah Guthrie is a left-wing nut, okay? But, I have to give her a little bit of credit here. I really do, and sincerely. She was really pressing Kamala on this whole issue of this illegitimate elections going forward. But the thing that I think that Kamala did not realize, when your friends in the left-wing mainstream media are pressing you on issues of the day, and you're not providing good answers, and they keep on pressing, you are really in big trouble. And this represents the state and the chaos of the Biden administration, because they can't no matter what the issue is, they can't seem to get their story straight, and they can never display some level of competence that we, the American people, can have some confidence in. These people are out to lunch, and they look like they're on a very, very long lunch from which they'll never return. God help us, please. I'm begging.
Well, this wasn't the only crazy gaffe. I mean, if it were, I guess it would have been a pretty good interview for Joe Biden, or a pretty good press conference if this were the only gaffe. But he had another big one, too. It was a pretty whopper of a one. Maybe we could get the image up for that as well. But he was being asked about, some of the saber rattling that's going on there between Russia and Ukraine. And Joe Biden went on to say during that interview that, he said, he told the news conference, it's one thing if it's a minor incursion, and there is a fight about what to do or not to do. So I mean, he's literally going on and kind of giving the green light to Russia about saying, well, exactly. Maybe we will defend it, maybe we won't. It depends if it's a minor thing. And boy, oh boy, the next that day and the next day, the Ukrainian prime minister was already right out on top of this, said, hey, look, if they invade our country, there are no minor incursions. So, as he's looking down the face of the Russian bear, right there in his border. Yeah. And, but geez, and then of course, the following days, the Pentagon and everybody else is doing all this saber rattling back, saying, hey, look, we got to get people out of there because we wind up going to war with, Russia over this. My gosh, I mean, does this guy have a clue, right? I mean, so he makes a gaffe, and then his administration has to double down to cover for him to get more on a war footing. It's just, oh my gosh. You guys have any thoughts on this boob we have for president?
Go ahead first, Leon.
I mean, on a serious note, okay, on a serious note, even though this some of this is laughable, to think that an American president will be inviting another country to make Russia, in this case, to make a minor incursion into somebody else's country, okay. But the point is though, and this is a serious point here, I do not understand why we should be sending American troops to defend the borders of Ukraine, even though under normal conditions I would support it with not a problem. Why would we send American troops to defend the borders of Ukraine And we cannot send some of these same troops to defend our southern border, where people are invading us right now. The last in 2021, we had 2 million people just walk across our borders, and the administration is doing nothing about it. But now they want to go to Ukraine to stop the Russians from walking across the Ukrainian border. What the hell is going on in this society that we can't defend our own borders, but we have to go to defend other people's borders? What the hell is this? We don't have a country anymore.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know where to start with Ukraine because the history is rife with American interference, including the overthrow the democratically elected government in Kiev by the Obama administration. So, and the people they put in there were supportive of the U.S., but they're also Nazi sympathizers, not pro-Nazi people that they put in power. Like our typical puppet government. It's just all our interests all over the world, unconstitutionally promulgated, and the whole Ukraine-Russia thing has, they've been a warm water port for Russia for over 300 years in the Sevastopol, for example, part of Ukraine. And it's their only warm water port there at the Black Sea. So, do they have an interest in having the ability to put their ships at port there? Yeah, they do. And, it's a serious threat to Russia, this whole idea of the Ukraine being completely taken in, basically controlled by the U.S., okay? That's what the U.S. government wants to do. It always wants to control everybody, everywhere, all over the globe, especially when oh God, and to make an enemy with Russia. Are you kidding? This is what you want to do when they've already developed oil agreements with Germany and France, and everybody else is like happy to do business with Russia, but no, the United States wants to go to war. Well, I know why they want to go to war. They sell more planes. The people behind that are pulling the strings of Joe Biden, that complete buffoon, who's not doing nothing comes out of that guy's brain because he has no brain. Everything that comes out of there comes from Boeing and all the arms makers that just want to have constant, perpetual, never-ending war, and more war. And that's what we're going to have. We're probably going to, send troops to the Ukraine, as stupid as that is. And tons of people that have a brain about it are coming out with how stupid this whole thing is. That this whole idea of trying to keep Russia from getting their only warm water port. Okay, it's time we stop policing the whole friggin' world and telling everybody what to do and mucking agreements between nations to sell oil back and forth and all the other stuff that we love to do. Not us, but I'm talking about our American government, completely off the constitutional rails when it comes to making war. Okay, it's completely out of control, totally. And it's in the control and in the hands of people that make trillions of dollars, manufactured dollars created by the Fed, sure, but still dollars, and it all goes into their pockets. So I'm sick to death of it, sick to death of it. And this complete moron, Biden, is just, at least Obama wasn't a moron, but he was evil, rotten to the core, just like all of them. And he's the one that put those people into power at Kiev. And here we are, pro-American, anti-Russian now. And here we are in this complete cluster of a mess over there.
Certainly a bit far to call this defense anyways. We're sitting there reaching across the world and doing that. But, this does beg the question, with all of these gaffes, and we'll talk a little bit more in Knucklehead Noise Patrol about some of the other gaffes, but, how old is too old to be president? I mean, this, he's clearly, he's pushing, what is he, 79, 80 years old right now, and he's certainly showing it. My gosh, should there be an age limit? I don't know. I mean, personally, from a libertarian perspective, I would hope the voters can kind of suss that out themselves. But man, he sure is, challenging that. Whether or not, I mean, we have a lower age limit, 35. And, hopefully that'll keep some people like AOC waiting a little bit longer who might not be bright enough to be president. But on the backside, well, I don't know.
You're making an assumption that the president actually has a say in any of this stuff. Yeah. That's which I submit is a flawed assumption.
Are you talking, Tim, are you talking about the current president or presidents in general?
Presidents in general. They just do what they're told for the most part.
No,
now, once in a while, they
may
make some split-second decisions, and they, but I mean, would we have had? It doesn't matter. Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. We're always at war, and we've never not been at war since. Gosh, I don't know. How far back do you want to go? Probably the beginning of the 19th century. So here we are.
Well, I will have to disagree with that, Tim. I really do.
Okay.
I mean, the current president, I will totally agree. He's out to lunch and he's not running the White House, nor is he running the executive branch of government. I totally agree with that. But
well,
I think
I would have one exception. That would be Eisenhower, who actually reduced the in constant 2010 dollars or 2007 dollars. I don't know. It was a way to just make it constant, but he reduced the outlay of defense spending from $500 billion a year to $300 billion in constant dollars, so you can rule out inflation. And so he cut way back, and then along came Reagan, and there it went from there. Then went back up to $400 billion, and now it's in the $500 billion range, constant dollars. We love to spend money.
Well, we do.
Exist.
I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that the projection of the U.S. military might on net has some value in the world. I really believe that, and I think there's a good argument to be made there.
Well, sure, but you want to make it for the defense of every Tom, Dick, and Harry country around out there?
No, I'm not talking about that. No, I'm not talking about that, and I'm not talking about it. But I think in a world where there is evil, where evil exists, I think there's somebody must stand against that evil.
Yeah, but
I
do
do
you? Well, do you trust that we never know who our planner is going to be, who's standing up to that evil. Right now, it's Joe Biden, and one might question, exactly how evil is the evil that he's standing up to. But that said, he's literally playing poker with the cards facing the wrong direction. He's reading the back.
In Joe Biden's case, I understand, Jason, I understand your point. In Joe Biden's case, we have a serious problem here because I think he's had some real cognitive problems. And you were talking about the age limit issue. This is what started this, and whether there should be a age limit to the presidency. But the fact of the matter is, we have a mechanism in the Constitution right now by which, if a president is either physically or mentally incapacitated, he could be removed. There's a mechanism in the Constitution to do this. I mean, would the Democrats use that? His cabinet use it to remove Joe Biden? At some point in time, it will become too obvious that they will have to do it, or do something.
We are so polarized, though, that you see essentially CNN and a lot of these other channels just whitewashing everything that is said by him, so that one side sees him as a raving lunatic who's out to lunch, and the other side sees him as, that seems completely reasonable because we're just going to paraphrase everything he said to make sense, right? So, but anyways, we're pressing up against the back of our show here, and I think what we'll do with our good guys with guns, we'll throw that into the overtime so we can push onto the Knucklehead Noise Patrol right now. So in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, we're talking about So Biden was in this particular press conference that he gave. He literally was asked how he thinks he's doing during the thing, and Biden literally says, in evaluating his own presidency, he says, "I didn't overpromise, and what I have probably outperformed what anybody thought would happen." He says, "If you think." I think if you take a look at what we've been able to do, you'd have to acknowledge we've made enormous progress. Now, oh my God, I mean, this guy, he claimed he was going to defeat COVID. Yet we have vaccines that apparently don't stop COVID, and they just run right through it, apparently, at least as far as infection goes. We have a situation where we're starting to go into potentially double-digit inflation we're starting to stare down. We're staring down a potential war, as we've been talking about with Russia. I mean, he's literally shaking confidence in elections going forward. We literally had pictures of a pullout in Afghanistan where people were clinging to our planes and falling to their deaths while he completely armed basically a terror state. Just can't imagine exactly what he thought would not be overperforming. I mean, oh man, I mean, if he had underperformed, geez, I can't even imagine what kind of a world we'd be in right now. You guys have any thoughts on this, Jen?
I would just say, let's thank God that this man is overperforming, okay? I really have to say that. Thank God he is, because I don't want to see what underperforming look like by Joe Biden. I really don't want to see it. So I have to say, thank God he's overperforming. This is insanity on steroids. Okay? Listen to all those things you have just listed, Jason. I could probably add a few more myself if we had the time. This is insanity. Let's just say, thank God the man is overperforming. I thank him for that. I thank him for his overperformance. God.
Maybe he's getting the overperforming part from his advisors. Maybe they've been giving him such great advice, and that wow, I never thought of that. Maybe that's what he's telling them, and he's real glad that he's got these very wise advisors changing the path of his presidency, and maybe that's what he's thinking of. I don't know.
Well, I tell you, I mean, you talk about those advisors, and I mean, my gosh, I remember them on the news as we were pulling out of Afghanistan. Certainly a lot of libertarians would support the idea that we're sort of pulling back, this idea of fighting all these conflicts around the globe. Oh, yeah. But they were literally calling it successful when people were clinging to the wheels of airplanes, and we had terrorist bombing at the airport too, killing 13 soldiers, and we completely armed a terror organization. I just can't even imagine, that they'll sit there and they'll stare right at the camera and they say, and this has been a very successful pullout.
Yes, we left. We evacuated the soldiers first. We left the people behind. 13 of our soldiers died at the airport. We're going to call that a success. People clinging on to planes trying to get out. That's a success. Just remember, it's our success because this man is overperforming. What a wonderful human being.
Well, we have to make a successful pull out of our regular time here because we're just about at the end of our normal time. So thanks so much for joining us for that. And if you want to stick with us, we'll be going to our overtime segment to talk about good guys with guns. So for those of you who are just with us for the regular time, thanks so much, and we'll see you at the next one.
Bye.
Okay, so let's roll on to overtime. Good guys with guns, Tim. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, well, this happened last January 3rd of this year in Philadelphia. So a 38-year-old Lyft driver shot two men during a carjacking. In West Philadelphia, police say the Lyft driver was reportedly on the 1100 block of North 40th Street just after 2:30 p.m. Monday when he was rear-ended by a vehicle twice. So they're doing the old, they stole a car and they're going to smash it into the guy and then carjack his car. I don't know. When the driver exited his vehicle, he was approached by a man who exited the striking vehicle with a shotgun and took the Lyft driver's vehicle. The Lyft driver has a valid permit to carry and shot the man with his personal weapon, I guess as he was driving off, perhaps. The driver of the striking vehicle then attempted to hit the victim when he fired his weapon at the second defendant. Both men fled the scene, one in the Lyft driver's vehicle and the other in the striking vehicle. Police located one of the men inside a 2011 Infiniti on the 4200 block of Parkside Avenue. He was suffering a gunshot wound to the chest and transported to an area hospital where he was placed in critical condition. The driver of the striking vehicle was located on the 4300 block of Lancaster Avenue in a Honda Accord. He was suffering from a gunshot wound to the right side of the rib cage area and was transported to a local hospital, also in critical condition. Both of the defendants were arrested and weapons were recovered along with the vehicles. The Lyft driver did not sustain any injuries during this incident. Lyft released a statement regarding the incident Tuesday night. Safety is fundamental to Lyft, and the incident described as deeply troubling. We have been in touch with both the rider and driver to offer our support and have reached out to law enforcement to offer our assistance. Apparently he had a rider, I don't know, first mention of that. Anyway, Lyft is very interested in safety, I'll have you know. I don't know, I hope this guy doesn't lose his Lyft privileges.
Well, I hope not too. The man defining his life and his property. What the hell is wrong with this?
I don't know.
Jeez. But I hope he don't lose his Lyft privileges or license or whatever it is he has. I hope not.
Yeah, boy, that's it does kind of beg the question. I guess not all regulation is necessarily public regulation. Here it's a private company that's maybe going to have some restrictions on their employees here for doing that. So
it's possible.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. I mean, he had a permit to carry apparently. So, yeah. I mean, that should be good enough.
Yeah. Right?
You would think so. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's funny. I was reading an article recently about the taxis, or no, in fact, I was hearing it was a Walter Block thing from Defending the Undefendable. And he was talking about cab drivers, and he was talking about how the safety of the cab driver is actually one of those things that causes there to be discrimination a lot of times, because in the past it was saying that that if the guy thought he was going to have to take that person he was picking up to a worse neighborhood, then that might be what caused him to pass on it. So I mean, it was sort of like an indirect kind of racism thing, where he's looking at the person he was going to pick up and saying, hey, that person probably lives in that section of town, so I'm not going to pick him up, and the thing was specifically about essentially immigrant cab drivers is what the focus was, I think. But anyways, it's kind of interesting, and here a person is literally trying to solve that problem, defending themselves, and there you go. Of course, in this case, it wasn't a fare that happened. It was literally somebody who just struck the cab and tried.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And then they stole his car. They never talked about the rider until Lyft was mentioned. So what does that mean? They kidnapped the guy too? I don't know. I don't think there was a rider personally.
Well, but Lyft said they reached out to the rider, though. They said that.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Okay. Well, a lot more questions than answers. But still, a case where a guy defended himself, from some people out to no good. So that's always good to hear.
He's definitely a good guy with a gun, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But before we leave, Jason, I don't think we properly resolved the issue of should there be an age limit to be elected president. And,
okay.
I didn't hear your thoughts on it, so I would like to hear what you say about that.
Well, I mean, we know we have a restriction on the younger side, and yes. I'm not sure how appropriate that is or not. I mean, there is, like I said, the plus. It does keep people like AOC waiting a little longer to be able to apply, which is always a good thing, I guess. But I kind of think that this is something where you'd almost rather leave it up to the voters. But man, is Joe Biden challenging that? I mean, it's a real struggle here in this polarized world that we have, where you could practically put a turnip up there and vote for it. And, you know, if one side convinced themselves through their propaganda that turnip was better than anybody else, that's what you're going to get. And I don't know, maybe we do need guardrails on age to say that, you know, that turnip's got to be under 80 or something. I don't know, you know, by the time he finishes his term or something.
Yeah.
So
By you saying the age limit violates some age limits, either way, on the low side or the high side, violates some libertarian principle?
Well, I would think that in a way it kind of does. I mean, I would think you'd want to leave the freedom of the people governed as much as possible to those people to figure out whether that person is worth electing or not, instead of having some edict from on high that, you know, certain people shouldn't be elected and such. I mean, we've seen that go in bad directions with respect to race and other things in the past, you know, where people tried to restrict it. I guess not so much in the law about who can be elected on race, but certainly all kinds of impediments that people threw in people's ways. You know, with respect to, like, you know, language poll tests or something, where, you know, if your grandfather, you know, was able to vote, then you don't have to take the test. But if, you know, if your grandfather wasn't able to vote, then you got to take the test. And of course, if you're coming out of slavery, out of, you know, the South, then of course it's only one group of people that's going to be tested probably, or very, you know, so it's, I don't know. I mean, I would tend toward having more freedom for people to make these decisions. But like I said, Joe Biden is really the outlier at this point. That's
but does not beg a very serious question, though. I mean, if we're talking about the people making decisions and people voting so that their decisions can be expressed through the ballot box, then it will say then we should also remove the age restrictions on people being able to vote. I mean, my 5-year-old grandson should be able to vote based upon your libertarian principles.
Well, no, I think as far as the libertarian thought would go, I mean, it depends upon, you know, obviously there's a lot of different libertarians out there, but I at least think a lot of people say that if you're a responsible adult, right, then that's when you sort of have all of your freedoms. So the idea that, you know, we say that some people are simply not responsible enough. So, you know, the idea that, you know, the idea of not letting a 5-year-old enter into contract is mostly out of protection for the 5-year-old, right? I mean, you'd hate the idea that somebody offers them a lollipop and now they're indentured for life because they made a bad decision on that lollipop, right? So I you know, that's where I think, you know, we set some kind of an age constraint to say that this is mature and this is immature, and at that point, that person it's completely on them, the decisions they make. But before that, maybe they have to have some sort of guardianship, you know, because otherwise, they said, I mean, where do you draw the line? You know, if somebody said, hop into my van and I'll give you a bag of candy, and suppose they gave him the bag of candy, I still don't think that's right, just because they followed through on the contract, right? So, yeah.
But then, Jason, but using that logic, though, look at Joe Biden at this point in time. I mean, could we really believe that we don't believe this man is in charge of his cognitive abilities? We don't think so. We think he's being guided by some people in the White House, maybe Susan Rice and Obama in the background. I don't know. But somebody is running his presidency. There's no doubt about that, as far as I can tell. Well, if we use the same logic of whether this man should be able to make decisions or should be able to engage in any sort of contractual obligations or treaty obligations for the United States, isn't that the same logic as that of the 5-year-old?
Well, I do want to point out something. We have had a vegetable in the office in the White House before.
I have a very serious question.
We have had a vegetable in the White. Woodrow Wilson was a vegetable for the last half of his last term.
Yeah, no, but his wife was running the presidency. You're right. You're right.
But it's we've had that. This issue has actually happened before in the history, and
But by the way, for our guests, that's James
state
Just, our invisible hand, has just jumped in with these comments, and
Yeah.
and after that, Tim is waiting to give a comment.
Tim has a question.
Yeah, I have a very serious question. I just want to know, is Tulsi Gabbard too old to be president?
Not until you're long gone, Tim. Not until you're long gone.
Okay, well that's comforting.
Yeah, Tim just had to go there, but James, you're right. We previously had an incapacitated president. His wife was, as far as we know, his wife was running the government at the time, claiming that these are
his wife and staff. It's clear. Clearly, it was his wife and staff. Yeah, it was clear. Yeah.
Yes. So, but my point is, if we're gonna bar a 5-year-old because we do not believe their mental capacities or their cognitive abilities are mature enough to handle the rigors of deciding who they should vote for, how could we then turn around and not use the same for?
No, you're breaking up, Leon. But yeah,
well, I can actually answer that question, though, Leon, because you have to draw a line somewhere, and sometimes it means you're a hypocrite. As a parent of 5, plus, that's what it means. Sometimes you have to draw a line, and sometimes that line means, yeah, I'm a hypocrite right here, but, life's tough like that sometimes.
Okay. Well, and the thing is, I think with kids, I mean, we all know that it's absolutely certain at age 1 that they're not competent, right? I mean, we have absolute certainty. As you get closer to 18, then the questions become, a lot more nuanced, right? I mean, maybe when they're 16, maybe they're capable of making their own decisions. Maybe when they're 20, it's not until they're 20. But the bottom line is, we know it's somewhere roughly in that age range, and we got to pick some number as a society. And even then, we make exceptions where a person can petition to be emancipated so that they can make all these decisions on their own too. Yeah. So there are some exceptions, but with age, I don't know. I mean, somebody could become kind of incapacitated when they're with dementia when they're in their 60s, and it could be in their 80s. I mean, where it seems like a much broader line, and so I don't know. It seems. Yeah, I mean, maybe at some point, like you're saying, you take a test or something to continue to be emancipated. I don't know, but I mean, it's I'd much rather be on the side of liberty for the older person than saying we've got to start making decisions for them.
Well, okay, I can accept your arguments, and James, you're right. I mean, every argument that could be made here today, there will always be somebody who could raise an exception, and then it could make me and my arguments make me a hypocrite. It is true. I will concede that point. But I still think, though, if we're gonna think about age limits, if that's ever come to any kind of fruition, we'll have to question whether 18 years of age is the correct age of people to be voting.
Yeah, well, let's remember, Leon, it wasn't that long ago where being 12 years old and going off getting married and starting your family was normal. It wasn't that long ago.
That's true. You're right.
This thing about age, it evolves, and now people are living older, so that top end age will continue to evolve farther along. So I don't know. I don't think there's a clear answer. I think Jason kind of says we have to let voters kind of make these decisions. And is it unfair for some people? Yeah, but life is always unfair to some people. That's just kind of the way life is.
Yeah, I think the real thing is we've got to get out of these echo chambers, and because that's the real danger here, is that we're being gaslighted by one side or the other to say that, hey, my guy is just awesome, and whatever emanations come out of them are sunshine and butterflies, whereas the other side is pure evil. And that's what we're seeing. And so, I mean, it's literally, you got one side believing that Joe Biden's a really decent, competent guy.
All right, now I got to call directors. It's time for us to wrap this up. I have got other things to do.
No. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. So, and we'll catch you at the next one.
In life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.